Okay, let's get into it. Today, we're doing a deep dive on the compatibility between Scorpio and Capricorn.
Yes. And we've got quite a bit to work with, loads of articles, different analyses, research bits.
Covering pretty much everything, right? Relationships, sex, how they talk to each other, work stuff.
And even, where they might fit into a bigger sort of spiritual picture.
Mm. So our goal here is really to sift through all that, figure out what makes these two, earth and water, tick.
Exactly. Where the sticking points are and maybe uncover some surprising things about how deep their connection can go.
Kind of cut through the clutter for you, get straight to the heart of this pairing.
Let's do it.
Okay, so first up, basics. Capricorn's earth, Scorpio's water. Generally, the sources seem to agree this is a pretty good starting point elementally.
It is. It's often seen as a potentially harmonious blend. Astrologically speaking, they often form a sextile, which is that 60-degree angle.
Right. And that suggests what? Like an easier connection.
Yeah, an easier flow, a kind of natural understanding, shared values maybe, and
Yeah.
potential for them to help each other grow. It's not like guaranteed perfect,
Yeah.
but the foundation's there.
And personality-wise, the descriptions sound quite similar in some ways. Serious, determined.
Very goal-oriented.
Hmm.
There's a definite weightiness they both have.
And this came up a lot. Neither rushes in.
Oh, definitely not. Both are super cautious, slow to trust, slow to let that guard down.
And this seems key once they do commit.
It's usually serious.
Yeah.
For the long haul. That shared patience, that long-term view, it's a big connector for them.
You know, speaking of weightiness, one word that jumped out from a source describing them was heavy.
Heavy. Yeah, it sounds maybe negative, but the context was more about depth, wasn't it?
Exactly. It said they don't float, they sink together, which you kind of need to do if you're exploring really complex stuff.
Right, they're not afraid to go there.
Yeah.
The sources mentioned potential shared interests, like deep family patterns, collective trauma.
The poetics of survival, yeah, not exactly light dinner conversation usually.
Not at all. It's about the deep structures, the things often hidden beneath the surface.
Yeah.
Like that analogy one source used.
Oh, the Scorpio as the deep ocean.
And Capricorn is the mountain on the seabed. Both massive, mysterious, not fully visible.
And it seems Capricorn is actually drawn to Scorpio's mystery.
Well, yeah, because it kind of mirrors their own complex inner world, which they don't always show. There's a sort of recognition there.
And then there is that more intense point about them both being a bit in love with pain.
Yeah, that sounds pretty stark.
Yeah.
But it seemed less about, masochism and more about endurance.
Right, like Capricorn associated with chains, maybe self-imposed limits, and Scorpio with that almost athletic pushing through intense discipline.
Exactly. A shared sense of, like, quiet melodrama, life as something to be endured, maybe. Just keep plowing through.
It's a specific outlook, but it sounds like something they really understand in each other.
So with that intense foundation, what are the big strengths when they team up?
Well, Scorpio's intuition seems really important. They can kind of feel what's going on with reserved Capricorn without needing constant explanation.
Yeah, they get that the silence isn't necessarily empty. It might be full.
And Capricorn, in return, brings that stability, that groundedness that water sign Scorpio really seems to need. It anchors them.
It's a really complementary dynamic. Capricorn grounds Scorpio's emotions, and Scorpio helps Capricorn connect with their own deeper feelings, which they can sometimes wall off.
There's mutual respect there, too, it sounds like, for their dedication, their stability.
Absolutely. A deep admiration for how committed the other is to their goals. And when they share a goal...
Apparently nothing can stop them.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That shared need for safety, for security, it fuels this incredible drive. They'll work really hard to build that secure world together.
And loyalty, that kept coming up, especially for Scorpio.
Hugely important. Remember that poll? Something like 69% of Scorpio readers put loyalty above all else.
Wow.
So once that trust is established, it's presented as incredibly solid, almost unbreakable.
There was that really striking line about Scorpio trusting Capricorn to, like, grieve them properly if something happened, because Scorpio thinks about endings.
That's profound, isn't it? It speaks to this deep, almost faded sense of trust, rooted in their shared grasp of life's heavier aspects.
It links into that shared fascination with destiny, maybe, and how intensely they both seem to examine themselves.
Right. Scorpio respects Capricorn's discipline, their rigor, and Capricorn is impressed by Scorpio's sheer mental intensity.
And they sort of naturally fall into roles. Capricorn providing, Scorpio sharing the inner world.
Seems that way often. a provider and a sharer, building and deepening together.
Okay, but it can't all be smooth sailing. Where do the sources say the friction tends to happen?
Communication. Overwhelmingly, that's flagged as the biggest potential struggle.
Why is that?
Well, Capricorn can be very blunt. Practical, direct, maybe doesn't always soften the edges.
And Scorpio.
Scorpio is famously sensitive, easily wounded, can take things very personally.
So bluntness meets sensitivity. Not always a great mix.
It can lead to these cycles, intense fights, maybe dramatic making up, if they don't learn to communicate more tactfully.
And with both being so serious, do their conversations get stuck?
They can. They might naturally gravitate towards heavy topics, which is fine, but the sources suggest they sometimes lack lightness. They need to consciously find ways to just have fun, laugh together, though that shared dark humor can be a bonding point.
Okay. What else? Emotional expression.
Yeah, different styles there too. Capricorn tends to be more practical, less outwardly expressive, maybe less mushy.
While Scorpio needs quite a bit of emotional reassurance to feel secure.
Exactly. So Scorpio might see Capricorn as cold, or like they don't care enough, if Capricorn doesn't learn to verbalize more. And Scorpio needs to understand Capricorn's way of showing care might be more action-based.
Work styles too, apparently.
Can be different. Capricorn often likes schedules, visible progress, structure. Scorpio can be more intense bursts, deep mental work, maybe disappearing into a project. Less about looking busy, more about deep focus.
And stubbornness. I feel like that's got to be mentioned.
Oh, absolutely. Both signs are known for being incredibly stubborn, unyielding, which means arguments can really drag on if neither is willing to budge.
That drive for self-improvement they share. Can that backfire?
It can, yeah. If it turns into constantly feeling like they or the other person aren't good enough, they need to reassure each other too, not just push for improvement.
And control versus order. Scorpio wanting control, Capricorn wanting structure.
That can create friction, yeah, even in like intimate settings or when working together.
Speaking of work, professionally, their skills seem complementary on paper.
They really do. Scorpio's intuition and innovation, Capricorn's strategy and follow-through, great potential.
What?
But Scorpio's individualism might clash with Capricorn's preference for doing things their way, the established way. Scorpio might feel hemmed in. Capricorn might see Scorpio as undisciplined or reckless.
And some sources warned about, what was it, sentimental detachment?
Yeah, kind of cooling off over time if that deep emotional connection isn't actively maintained. Some analyses, like in Dastro's, give lower scores for long-term love compatibility because of this potential drift. It needs nurturing.
Okay, let's zoom in on specifics. Sexually, what's the verdict?
Generally, great chemistry reported, but maybe some initial awkwardness or intimacy hurdles because they're both so cautious.
Makes sense.
Once they're comfortable, though, Capricorn can actually bring some maybe surprising new ideas that Scorpio really gets into. And for Capricorn, sex with intense Scorpio can be a welcome distraction from work.
But Scorpio needs that emotional connection tied into it.
Definitely. More so than Capricorn might initially offer, being more reserved. But Capricorn's physicality helps ground Scorpio. And Scorpio's emotional fire helps Capricorn open up more deeply. It's a give and take.
Emotionally, then, potential for balance.
Huge potential. Capricorn offers structure for Scorpio's powerful feelings. Scorpio helps Capricorn tap into emotions they might otherwise ignore.
The key seems to be vulnerability.
Absolutely. Both have to let those walls down, bit by bit, to stop that potential drift we mentioned.
Communication. We know it's tough.
Yeah, the number one challenge zone, that bluntness versus sensitivity thing, needs constant navigation. Tact from Capricorn, maybe less trauma from Scorpio.
But they do get each other's need for quiet time.
That's a plus, yes. They understand needing space. But building trust for open, kind dialogue, that takes real work.
And trust itself, once it's there.
It's described as rock solid, like truly unbreakable if they get there. But it relies heavily on building that emotional intimacy first. Capricorn's steadiness is a huge factor in helping Scorpio feel safe enough to trust.
Okay. Values. Are they aligned there?
Generally, yes. Big overlap. Safety, security, ambition, self-betterment, finding the truth that shared foundation is strong.
And professionally working together.
Potentially a powerhouse team. Scorpio's vision and analysis, Capricorn's planning and execution.
But they need clear roles.
Clear roles and a flexible communication to handle those different styles, Scorpio's intensity and independence versus Capricorn's structure and control. Manage that, and they can achieve a lot.
It's really interesting how some sources rave about them, calling it like a union for the ages,
Yeah, rock-solid foundation, one of the strongest pairings.
while others are much more cautious, pointing to those potential long-term issues.
It really shows the polarity, doesn't it? The ones focusing on the strengths see that incredible shared depth, the loyalty, the determination. They see the potential for something amazing and lasting.
But the caution comes from the process.
Exactly. The communication pitfalls, the different ways they handle emotions, that risk of growing apart if they don't actively work on connection. Sources like Indastro seem to say, yes, the core values align, but the day-to-day emotional and communication stuff is hard work and can trip them up if they're not mindful.
So huge potential, but it requires real conscious effort.
That seems to be the consensus, yeah.
Now let's bring in that other layer, the one from sources like Linda Goodman about soul development stages. This was fascinating.
It really adds another dimension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Associating Scorpio with the I desire stage.
Which is about.
Passion, sex, learning surrender, becoming aware of life's big mysteries, birth, death, sex, spirit. It's about testing your will, exploring the unknown, the hidden things. Love is this intense, powerful force.
And then Capricorn is the next stage I use.
Right. Described as the old age of the soul journey. It's about wisdom gained through experience, learning unselfishness, setting priorities, security, belonging.
More pragmatic.
Yeah, imparting wisdom, but maybe a bit resigned. Knowing pure idealism is tough. There's deep sympathy for human failings because they've seen it, experienced it. Love is more about quiet support, reliable exchange, maybe less about that consuming fire.
So when you put Scorpio and Capricorn together through that lens,
Their intensity, their focus on truth, their understanding of grief or loyalty, it feels less like just personality quirks and more like, well, different stages of a soul's journey interacting. It deepens the whole picture of their connection.
okay, so wrapping this all up, what's the takeaway? Scorpio and Capricorn.
They definitely seem to have the raw materials for something incredibly strong, incredibly deep and lasting.
But it's not necessarily easy.
No, it requires navigating those key challenges we talked about, like
Yeah.
actively finding ways to lighten up, have fun, balance out that shared seriousness.
And working constantly on communication, Capricorn finding tact, Scorpio managing the intensity of reactions.
Blending Scorpio's emotional depth with Capricorn's practicality takes conscious effort, respecting each other's way of doing things, avoiding competition.
It sounds like the potential is immense, but the relationship really needs to be a priority for both of them to make it work long term.
That sums it up well. The sources definitely paint a picture of high potential, but also high maintenance in specific areas.
So ultimately, it's a powerful, deep pairing, built on shared goals, determination, loyalty.
But needing careful handling, especially around feelings and talking about feelings.
And thinking back to that idea that both signs are drawn to destiny, to mysteries, to really digging into the self,
Yeah.
it leaves us with a final thought for you. Given how both Scorpio and Capricorn seem equipped to go deep, to understand life's tougher aspects like pain and commitment, what does their often very private, intense connection tell us about how we truly get to know the hidden parts of ourselves and others on our own journeys?